Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whichever time you are watching this presentation. My name is Derrick, and I would like to present today on ethics of assessment and evaluation in educational leadership, the case of Mr. Ali. Now, before we dive a little bit deeper into the case study or the ethical dilemma that we have today, imagine administering an exam, believing it accurately reflects what your students should know, and then later discovering that nearly everyone failed. Before you can process what went wrong, your administration calls you and say, hey, you gotta retest your students, make the test easier for them. Parents are upset. What would you do? This is the ethical dilemma that Mr. Ali finds himself in, and he wants some advice or solutions, of course, from ethical standpoint. Before we move on to the case study, I would like to provide a little bit of a background in assessment. Of course, we have assessment is multifaceted. We have assessment education and assessment in administration, of course. But for the purpose of this presentation, I would concentrate on assessment in education because that is where the ethical dilemma stems from in this case study. So, assessment is one of the most ethically charged practices in education because it simultaneously affects students' self concept, future opportunities, and the public's trust in schooling. In reviewing the literature about assessment, I came across the Assessment Purpose Triangle by Archer 2017. There is the assessment to support learning, assessment for certification progress and transfer, and assessment for accountability. In the ensuing paragraphs, we dive a little bit deeper into the ethical dilemma and we suggest solutions as well. Now, ethics of assessment and evaluation dilemma. Math teacher Mr. Ali conducts an exam for his class, and most of the class fails. The school administration asks Mr. Ali to retake the exam and prepare an easier one to improve the school's overall success rate and alleviate parents' reactions. However, Mr. Ali believes that the difficulty of the exam is necessary to measure the student's actual levels and is concerned that retaking the exam might send the wrong message to students. Mr. Ali has never faced such a situation in his teaching career and is uncertain about the best course of action. In this situation, what decision do you think Mr. Ali should make? Should he allow a retake to satisfy the school's and parents' expectations? Or should he stand by the original result to accurately represent the student's actual performance levels? What do you think would be the best decision for Mr. Ali and why? So, this case study was adapted from Karakus et al. 2025. In this case study are key stakeholders and the core ethical dilemma. Of course, it's a little bit obvious, but let's go into it in the next slides. These are the key stakeholders: students, Mr. Ali, school administrators, parents, and the broader system. The most important thing here is the core dilemma That is, whether to prioritize truthful representation of learning or prioritize institutional harmony and perceived success. In order to be able to propose or suggest a solution to this ethical dilemma, there is the need to understand some ethical theories, what some scholars in the ethics literature term as paradigm or theoretical frameworks. So, if two or three people or many people are presented with such a case study and are asked to give or propose a solution, of course, each of them is going to approach it differently based on their own paradigm or based on their own practice or how they see the situation. And according to Shapiro and Stefkovich 2021, these are some of the ethical theories that people find themselves with. In this case study is the ontological perspective, of course. From a duty-based perspective, Mr. Ali is obligated to assess honestly, and so adjusting standards after the fact violates the principles that guide grades, right? So he doesn't want to go contrary to the ethics surrounding assessment or testing. The opposite to the ontological perspective is the consequentialist or consequentialism, or what some other scholars term as the utilitarian ethics. So, from this perspective, an easier retake may reduce stress and parents' compliance. So, let's retake the exam. And the virtue ethics has to do with what would you or what would an honest and courageous educator do? Mr. Ali must balance truthfulness with humility and self reflection, considering whether the exam was aligned with instruction. And ethics of care, that is, it focuses on student needs. A caring response is not lowering the standards, it is supporting students through remediation and helping them learn from failure. And social justice, that is, so justice demands that assessment be fair and transparent. Making an exam easier after compliance undermines equity and invites inconsistency. So these are the ethical theories embedded in the case study. Now, in every administration, and one can argue that there are conflicting values in leadership. And in this case study, we have integrity versus image. So, accurate data versus looking successful, fairness versus compassion, that is, standards versus leniency, and of course, teacher autonomy versus administrative pressure. So, professional judgment versus the centralized control. So, what are the best ethical solutions? A simplistic choice between retaking or not retaking the exam fails to capture the ethical nuance required. So, a more principled, educationally sound response would involve the following steps. The first one, of course, is critical examination of the exam and instruction. So, Mr. Ali, with a department or leadership team, should review the exam for alignment with curriculum and instruction. So, because test items, whether multiple choice objectives, they should be understood with in a psychological perspective because there are students who are in between the distribution of students. So we have the best students and we have the below average students. So you wouldn't want to test items to be more difficult or easier. It should be in the middle. And so the critical examination here is to find out, conduct item analysis to identify overly complex or poorly worded questions to make sure the wording of the items are not devoid of or are not ambiguous or are devoid of ambiguity. The next one is transparent communication. So administrators and Mr. Ali should jointly communicate with parents and students. So the purposes of assessment, whether diagnostic or evaluative, we should make sure that we are open to um, parents and our students about this issue or situation. The third one is remediation and standards aligned assessment, reassessment. So, because you don't want to massage the scores, because you don't want to be unethical, I suggest that Mr. Ali can provide remediation for students, some kind of supplemental instruction where students who were finding a certain concept difficult, they can catch up. And the testing students should be cumulative, striking the average and not just determining their capability or their brilliance by just one exam. It should be cumulative. It should be based off of everything they have learned from the start of the semester. Implications. So, ethical leadership requires resisting purely cosmetic solutions and engaging with root causes of poor performance. Leaders must protect both student learning, interest, and teachers' professional integrity. Data should be treated as a tool for improvement, not a threat to be neutralized. Building a culture where failure can be faced honestly, reflected upon, and addressed constructively is central to sustainable ethical school improvement. And to sum it up, conclusion, the ethics of assessment and evaluation in Mr. Ali's case extend far beyond a single exam. They review deep questions about truth, justice, care, and professional responsibility in educational leadership. The most ethical course is neither to capitulate to pressure with an easier exam nor to cling rigidly to the original result without reflection. Instead, an ethically grounded solution integrate rigorous self-examination, transparent communication, meaningful remediation, and principled rate assessments. And these are my references. Thank you. Bye bye.